Thank you for joining us today on another installment of Frost & Sullivan's exciting podcast series highlighting key disruptive technologies, growth opportunities, economic trends, new business models, industry convergence, emerging geographies, and much more.
I am Jillian Walker, Principal Consultant with Frost & Sullivan's Visionary Innovation Group. Visionary Innovation is dedicated to identifying megatrends that will have impacts on how people live their lives, how governments operate, and how businesses engage. Today, we will be considering Mexico's innovation potential. Mexico boasts several assets that position it as a strong contender to become Latin America's innovation hub over the next 10 years. It also faces several challenges. Significant points include, in the last 6 years, growth of new startups led by 18 to 64-year-olds has been highest in Mexico among all other Latin American countries. This growth was more than double that of innovation-driven economies, including the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Switzerland. In addition, by 2025, there will be 3.5 connected devices per person in Mexico, creating a hyper-connected scenario ripe for spurring innovation in digital products, services, sales models, and business models. Further, the Mexican fintech market is expected to double from 2017 to 2022, reaching a value of $68.2 billion, making Mexico the fintech capital of Latin America. Today, we will discuss how, for Mexico, key shifts such as those just mentioned will converge, driving Mexico's innovation potential. Joining me today is Juan Cepeda, Strategy and Planning Director at Cisco, Mexico. Juan Cepeda, welcome. Thank you so much for being here to discuss this topic.
Thanks, Jillian. I'm very glad to be with you on this Frost and Sullivan podcast to discuss about this, at least for me, passionate topic, but I also believe that for many people, and particularly how is this moving forward in Mexico?
Great. So let's start with how Mexico is changing. First, there's the issue of the middle class. In Mexico, as in many leading developing countries, the middle class is growing. It's expected to reach 90 million in terms of population by 2030, and Mexico's middle class is projected to break into the top 10 countries globally, potentially surpassing Brazil in terms of how much its middle class will contribute to global consumption. From Cisco's perspective, what does this growth mean for Mexico in general and for the country in terms of an innovation environment?
Well, this is very relevant for Cisco and for every company. Mostly if you are in technology, of course, as you said, Jillian, this is going to be a very large consumer concentration with a high purchase power. So that's for any company, it is large opportunity. But in the time we're living, this is especially relevant because that middle class will be collected by generations that were exposed to technology since the very beginning of their lives. So I believe digitization speed and the speed of adoption will accelerate even more what we are already seeing today in terms of innovation. And today innovation is already growing exponentially. So you can imagine where this can take us in the following years.
So let's also talk about then connectivity, because I think that's also a great contributor towards innovation and the digital economy. What does this explosive growth and connectivity matter for Mexico, and what opportunities and challenges will it bring?
Well, you're saying we are moving very rapidly towards hyper-connected world. So in this type of world, the opportunities start to increase, accelerate, and grow in relevance for everyone, because the power of this is everyone and everything being connected. I mean, humans to humans, machine to machines, and people to machines. So the real power of all of those people and machines being connected is what brings the real opportunities in this type of world. When I speak about machines, I'm thinking also on all the sensors that we are seeing, from wearables to high-tech sensors, for example, in an airplane, that will be gathering all the information of all what is happening around us. And as you said at the beginning, in the next years, we'll have almost 4 devices for every person. So you can imagine all the amount of data and all the innovation that we can build to do many new solutions with that data and knowledge.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned machine to machine communication, especially in the context of Mexico, because we really can't talk about Mexico without discussing manufacturing. And certainly advanced manufacturing, manufacturing that's made more efficient by new technology paradigms such as the Internet of Things, automation, robotics, additive manufacturing. That will be very important to increasing the competitiveness of Mexican manufacturing. By 2020, more than 80% of Mexican exports will be made with advanced manufacturing. How is Cisco contributing to this revolution?
Well, you're right, Jillian. Of course, when you talk about Mexico economy, you need to talk about manufacturing. And regarding what Cisco is doing, I can share that on one side, Cisco is part or is going to be part of that 80% of Mexican export of manufacturing you're mentioning. We already have supply chain plants in Guadalajara, in Mexico, and already today we are a very significant contributor to the exports on advanced manufacturing, and a very large portion of what Cisco does in supply chains is already based in Mexico. That's on the supply chains as a part of that manufacturing ecosystem. But on the other side, as a company and with the products we sell, we have been working and helping to drive digitization on manufacturing. And we have a family of products that we call industrial IoT, especially designed for these perhaps more dense or more industrial environments, talking about equipment for wireless, wire communication, perhaps security, collaboration, all computes and even analytics and artificial intelligence that will help this advanced manufacturing to evolve into what we call the industry 4.0.
Great. So, I just want to switch gears here for a second and kind of pull the conversation back and talk about innovation in more of a global context. As a multinational company, how does Cisco view itself as a driver of innovation? What role is it playing in building innovation ecosystems?
Well, Cisco traditionally has been always on the edge on innovation. If you go to our history, we have been contributing to the internet development since the early days. And globally, as a company, we invest more than industry average as a percentage of our revenues in research and development. This is an amount around 6 billion annually. So that's what we put to develop and innovate. Also invest in other areas to develop and co-develop with our partners. Also some venture capital to promote these startups. That's in general globally. But in Mexico, we have been working in a strategy to promote innovation particularly. This strategy started first to empower innovation on the young people, on the universities, developing hackathons, delivering courses, and empowering all those young peoples to drive and innovate. Then we move to build a co-innovation framework with our partners and try to build a community of innovation so we can work new solutions for our customers. And now we're moving into the next phase to really start promoting a startup, initially mentoring and promoting them so we can also bring new digital solutions using and leveraging all Cisco technology and platforms to bring business outcomes to our customers in this digital world.
So, when we look at Mexico, since you brought up Mexico more specifically, and where Mexico is situated in terms of innovation globally, according to the Global Innovation Index, which measures innovation across a number of pillars, Mexico ranks number 56 out of 129 countries currently, and that's behind other regional countries, including Chile and Costa Rica. Yet, according to our calculations that we did in the Future of Mexico study, increasing innovation efforts could potentially yield an additional $250 billion in GDP through 2025. What steps do you think Mexico must take in order to strengthen its position both globally and regionally and really take advantage of this economic opportunity? What priorities should be top of mind?
Totally agree with you. It is a great opportunity we have ahead of us, and we need to think and do all the actions from private to public to capture and drive and promote this opportunity. First of mind, when I think on what we should do, first thing I think is develop talent, help the talent we have, all those more than 100 million people, and works to improve education for them, build programs that promote innovation with all this talent. Second point, as a country, I will define all the priorities and promote funds in hand with the private and public sector to develop all the ecosystem solution and startups defined on those priorities. And third, I will drive specific programs to promote innovation in those specific areas that are of most interest of the country. For example, manufacturing, government services, and financial services. You said at the beginning that fintech is an area of rapid and large growth in Mexico.
So I want to go back to talking about Cisco's engagement directly with Mexico. You had mentioned supporting startups as a way to kind of bolster the innovation ecosystem in Mexico. Maybe you could talk a little bit about Cisco's digital acceleration strategy and how that particular program is being applied to Mexico and even elsewhere in Latin America.
Glad you mentioned that, Jillian. This program called Country Digitization Acceleration, or CDA, is a unique program that Cisco has not for all the countries where it has presence, and we're talking about more than 100. But in some countries like Mexico, we have this program that represents specific funds to drive innovation in the country. On one side, these funds help to drive the strategy I mentioned earlier for innovation. I said empowerment on innovation, build a framework and a community, and also drive and mentor startups with new digital solutions. But additional to that, we work with our customers, both in private and public sector, to develop proof of concepts that help them to develop solutions with all the ecosystem and really show the business how digitization can bring to them.
So let's just spend a couple of minutes, if we can, discussing some emerging areas of technology innovation. For instance, cybersecurity, that's really an area of importance for individuals, businesses, government. For instance, earlier we mentioned growth in financial technology in Mexico, as you pointed out. And of course, the flip side to that is increased cybersecurity risk. How is Mexico focusing on this particular topic in terms of innovation?
Well, also a very relevant topic globally, of course, for Mexico. And you might know about Mexico, it is one of the top destinations for cyber attacks. So that makes this topic even more relevant for the country. Well, you can think on what is happening in Mexico and what is Cisco doing on this area. In Mexico, we have been seeing some progress into that, looking at the policies. We have improved into that, but I think there is still a long way to walk there. And we are helping the government and the private sector, our customers in both sides to develop in that. On one side, we are working to strengthen our customer infrastructure to be protected against attacks and protect their digital assets. That, of course, related directly to the operation and the protection on the cybersecurity space. But also a large effort that the country needs, and we are in line with that, is bringing education and awareness in different levels, from the youngs with some programs that we have on our network academy to level in-depth programs that we develop with our customers, all the way to certification specifically in cybersecurity. And well, particularly to promote awareness and education, we promote the creation of the cybersecurity along with the Tec de Monterrey. In this education area promoted, we recently helped Tec de Monterrey to the creation of the cybersecurity hub. This hub gathers many security officials and from companies, bringing together all their expertise and knowledge. We can discuss topics and make recommendations for our self-interest in each of the members of this hub, but also to contribute to the country awareness and the all experience gathered from these members of the hub.
Great. That's really interesting. And real quick, one final question for us, because I do want to touch on some other emerging technology areas such as artificial intelligence, even new connectivity paradigms such as Wi-Fi 6 and 5G. What opportunities do these technology areas present Mexico, especially in terms of innovation?
Well, those are great topics, but also very extended ones that I believe on this podcast we won't have too much time. But I would say that all of those technologies you mentioned are bringing a myriad of opportunities. And a company, we have been investing in all of them to create a value proposition for our customers and to lead the market to evolve with these technologies. In Mexico, as you said at the very beginning, we're moving to a hyper-connected, and there Wi-Fi 6 and 5G are going to be key to develop the market across all the other technologies you mentioned.
Thank you, Juan Cepeda, Strategy and Planning Director at Cisco Mexico, for your time today.
Thank you, Jillian and Frost, and glad to join with you this time.
We hope you have enjoyed this session. Please join us for future podcasts. And to know more about our growth partnership services, reach out to digital@frost.com. Thank you for your time.